All right, now I said it. Folks, it is happening. We are officially on Garcia Watch moving forward. That's right. Because Dave Meltzer today, he hit the old Wrestling Observer Radio to tell us that AEW is less confident now that Daniel Garcia will resign. Last month, this is the article again off of the Observer. Last month, it was reported that while Garcia and AEW had not come to terms on a new deal, the promotion believed he was most likely staying. However, Dave Meltzer noted on last night's Observer Radio, which would be on the Monday edition, right, that AEW is no longer as certain as they once were. This is what Meltzer had to say. As far as what's going to happen with him, I would say this. I would say that the almost surety or the strong confidence that he was signing, I wouldn't say it's as strong, but I wouldn't say that he's leaving either, but it's not as strong as it was a month ago. He may leave. What a great Dave quote there. That is tremendous. Meltzer continued to say that Garcia not being on AEW programming of late is due to his not having re-signed. Meltzer says Tony Khan is often hesitant to put talent on AEW programming if he feels they are likely going to leave the company when their contracts are up. Quote from Dave: if they believe somebody's not going to sign, and that's why a lot of the guys that you see or don't see, all right, Dave, there's a reason that you don't, because the belief is that when their contract is up, they are going to go. And if that's the case, Tony's just not going to put them on TV. He could go in there and job them, but some of them complain. He just didn't want to put them on TV. In a lot of cases, I think we've seen that. Man, oh man. So here's we are officially, like I said, on Garcia Watch. We are going to be keeping the closest eye on this. We are going to monitor every possible outcome here. But I got to tell you, this is wait. No, Brian, we don't. This is my podcast, Brian. We don't need you. You are already like completely immersed in wrestling media, right? It's okay. You can take a break. Besides, I'm not even sure these days that you still like pro wrestling anymore. I'm just, thank you, Brian, but no thank you. So the idea here of Daniel Garcia leaving, essentially, is kind of fascinating. I am all for this idea of playing both sides, right? Because ultimately, you would assume that money plays a rather big part into whether or not a wrestler decides to stay or go with or to a company. In this case, I'm not sure if this would be the right move. Like I often say, right? It's like, wrestlers should be able to move around. I think it's healthy for the business. I think it's healthy for wrestlers who just need to try out something new, right? Maybe they've grown a little stale. Maybe the act has hit its ceiling in their promotion. And it's so bizarre to me, considering what I just said, that Daniel Garcia would be like, I need to go check what's happening elsewhere. Because he hasn't even remotely hit his ceiling right now. Like, he was clearly a developmental project from AEW to bring him in, start him off, and grow him into a bigger star, a more proficient, more well-rounded pro wrestler, right? He hasn't even remotely hit his ceiling. Everyone knows, like, this guy has incredible skill. He has the potential to be a truly great professional wrestler. And we've only scratched the surface. Now, does he feel that maybe there are, like, here's another thing. As far as ceilings go, does he feel like he's hit his ceiling? Maybe he, we don't see what's going on backstage. Maybe there's stuff going around that in the locker room that establishes that maybe in his mind is like, no, this is my ceiling. I will never be able to pierce through that because of all the talk, because of all the politics, whatever, so on and so forth. Maybe that's a perception he has. But from the perception of a fan who is looking at this from the outside, someone who is an observer of the business, I think it's kind of wild that he would consider that this is a ceiling, because one of the top guys in the company just started up a program with him over the summer, put him in this really heated angle, and Garcia comes back, immediately starts feuding with him, right? Like, you've got the top guy in the company, MJF, a guy who people never say no to. Like, MJF is a guy that people just do not say no to. And he's saying, I want to work with Danny. I want to put him over. I want to help elevate him. And Garcia's like, nah, my ceiling, this is as far as I'm going to get. Well, this is pretty good, right? And I'm kind of bummed out because I'm convinced that this would have been a good year for Daniel Garcia to do the C2 again and have a much better C2 than last year. His Continental Classic last year was, he had good matches, but ultimately had a dismal performance overall. I mean, there's nothing better than having that person come back into the tournament and rise above what they did last year. And it's such an easy story to tell too. You have all the foundations. So I don't know. I don't know what the thing is. Is it due to the recent signings, all the signings that Tony Khan's been doing, and maybe he feels a little left out? Maybe he's just mad because he feels someone's taken his spot and he needs to go elsewhere, which is fair. I just think it is a weird decision if he decides to leave. Because let's be frank, chat, I know you have thoughts on this. In fact, I already see some in the chat. WWE is not a place for Daniel Garcia. Are you kidding me? Like the guy that everyone says, oh, he's just a boring wrestler in boots, black boots, black trunks. And we're going to, he's considering going to WWE. Like, hey, they might give him a nice little pushy push to start him off because that's look what they did with Ethan Page. Look what they did with the Sean Spears and Pillman Jr. That's what they do. And then eventually they just like fall to the wayside, right? They push, then they become, another one of the jabrones that they've got. The money is probably better, right? Wouldn't you assume, like, pound for pound? Because I know Tony Khan is able to, crack open the Scrooge McDuck coffers and get all the money he needs to sign the top free agents that he really wants. That's usually not an issue for him. But you don't necessarily need to hit the vault for Daniel Garcia. So, like, pound for pound, WWE maybe has better conditions, better money for Garcia. They probably want to woo him over because there will be the perception that they wooed over another AEW guy. So that's always good for them, despite the fact that they say that they're not in a competition. That's still part of it. That's still why they do it, right? That's probably still part of it. But his ceiling in WWE is Chad Gable, right? Never the bridesmaid, but always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But yeah, I would even say never the bridesmaid, never a bride. Like there's, Chad Gable in WWE is who cares? Who could possibly care? They tried and the fans bought into it, but it's like, They don't like him enough to give him an Intercontinental title reign, right? So what is Daniel Garcia going to do? Head into NXT? He's gonna start wrestling the warehouse? Gonna go mix it up with his old buddy Lexis King? And then, look, after we're done with the Charlie Dempsey matches, right? Because that's probably the one that people are like, well, at least that'd be interesting. Once we're done with that, once we're done with Daniel Garcia fighting William Regal's kid, what's left? What are we doing next? Like, well, legitimately, what is there to do afterwards? Daniel Garcia on the main roster in WWE in 2024. I want you to picture that in your mind. Picture that in your mind. And tell me if that makes sense. In AEW, because of the context, because of who he is, because I think he's a guy also that AEW fans identify as one of them, you know, maybe not an OG, maybe not a day oneer, but a guy that fans can easily get behind because they've seen him come up in their ranks, right before their eyes. I think he has a true to form shot to raise the ranks and be one of the top guys of the company. I think he showed it with MJF. I think he showed how much progress, you know, he's shown so much progress in his presentation. Yeah, the working with the Jericho Appreciation Society was a blessing for him. And in NXT, I mean, that's it. Once you're done with the Charlie Dempsey match, he's gonna do his dance, and people are gonna pop. And you know, the warehouse in Orlando, they're all gonna stand up and do the hip thrusts. And then once we're done with that, you know, it'll be a deflated balloon. It'll be a nice deflated balloon. It's kind of wild. Like, usually I'm pretty cut and dry in my feelings about guys and gals wanting to go to the other promotion. I'm like, just, okay, go try it out. But it's funny. It's funny. But I feel like in this circumstance here, Daniel Garcia stands a better chance of hurting his career going to WWE, slumming it in the warehouse for 3 to 4 years. I think he has much more potential to damage his career than staying in AEW and getting inserted into bigger programs. That's how I feel about it. Like, I in this circumstance, I would much prefer him to stay there. Also, I like him. I like him a lot. Now, from a pure, you know, wrestling fan perspective, I like Daniel Garcia. I don't want him to go wrestle for a promotion that I never watch. I want to be able to see him wrestle. Or when I do see him wrestle on the NXT PLEs, I don't want to be reminded of what it used to be. I don't want to be nostalgic. I don't want to sit there and go, oh my God. So his contract's coming up. We'll see what happens. You know, maybe Garcia is feeding this news and making everyone nervous. And, you know, don't forget, like, there's a reason why wrestler contract information gets leaked. It's not because there's people, you know, sneaking into Tony Khan's office, you know, at 3 a.m. in a ski mask, you know, tumbling through the security cameras, you know, finding all the right angles and putting little reflectors in front of the security cameras to give the impression that they're, you know, you're still filming the hallway when in fact it's just a reflection of the hallway. No big heists of people breaking into Tony Khan's office to get wrestler contracts and then leak them to the Wrestling Observer newsletter. That's not how it works. It's wrestlers. It's wrestlers writing out, touching base with the journalists, the scoopsters, and saying, hey, you know. Then the scoopsters do their job and they double check information. And then it gets put out there. And then it puts some little extra pressure on the boss to lock him down and lock him down with some good money. Because there's a lot of things, there's a lot of moments where I'll end it on this. There's a lot of moments that have happened in AEW history where people have said, big fumble Tony Khan when he let certain people go and WWE picked them up. You know, Ethan Page, Sean Spears, Pillman Jr., those were no fumbles there. Absolutely not. Jade Cargill, even to this day, I will argue that that was not a fumble. That was the best thing for Jade in AEW. That's not a fumble. AEW was not the spot for someone like Jade. It's WWE, and she's fine there, and that's all right. Cody, absolutely a fumble, 100% fumble. CM Punk, well, that was just best for everyone. And if Daniel Garcia, the Lucha Bros, yeah, I'm angling on the side of the fumble. I'm angling on the side of the fumble. But when it comes to Dan Garcia, if Dan Garcia leaves, that is absolutely a fumble. Because it's one thing to have a veteran like Cody leaving, who was already pushing 40, right? That's one thing there. But leaving one of your young guys that you've invested a lot of energy into, nonetheless, a guy that you've been slowly building as a player in the company, letting him just go and head on over to WWE, practically gift wrapped as a hot young prospect. Yeah, that's and a guy who can work, who can go, who has incredible in-ring talent. Yeah, it's a fumble. That would be a fumble. That would absolutely be a fumble. I'd rank him up there. Rank him up there with Cody. Rank him up there with the Lucha Bros. Fumble.